Right, what I'm going to do for this video is run through a checklist of things to set up before you hit the render button. In this example I'm using Daz, but some of these are applicable to other software. And the first of mine is ground position. Make sure your character is stood on the ground. If you don't do this, your render might end up looking like they're floating or there's a shadow below their feet. And on this one she's got bare feet. I've loaded up a pre-configured pose for this one, and it's, as you can see, the toes are crooked. It might have looked okay if they'd been wearing heels or boots or something, but barefoot it all looks a bit odd. So I've gone into the character, down to the foot, and I'm just adjusting the toes. There is a shortcut, it's Shift Control D I think on Daz. It'll drop your character to the floor, but it doesn't flatten the feet, so I'm just adjusting the toes a little bit here so she stands a bit flatter on the ground. You keep dropping her, you'll see it just shows you where the ground plane is. Probably should have adjusted the big toe on this foot as well, but don't want to make it too perfect. No one stands perfectly. Toes are a bit too crunched up there, just bend the foot back again. Not taking too much care on this. I mean, the feet are very minor once you've rendered, but you just want to make sure she looks like she's standing on the ground, and then lower it so that it looks like the feet are actually pressing into the ground, not that far, pressing into the ground rather than, you haven't got solid feet, you've got flexible ones. So, right, contact points. Make sure the hands don't penetrate the body. If you've loaded up a pose but you've got morphs or adjusted dimensions on your figure, you might end up your fingers going through. If I were to simulate this, it would probably explode. If you've got limbs penetrating other parts of the body, the simulation goes a bit crooked. So it's always a good idea to make it look a bit more realistic, and in this one it's not too bad. If you've got a smoothing modifier on your clothing, it will also adjust around the collision with the body as well, so it looks alright. I'm only going to do this to some detail on the parts you can see. The angle I'm going to be looking from, you won't see too much of this hand, although it's very close to the body. So I might just bend the arm a little bit to bring it further out. There we go. And because we're not looking too closely at this hand, I'm not going to adjust the fingers too much. Depending on what she's doing, you might want to adjust these to make it hold on to an object or give a proper push on something, but I must move the finger so it doesn't penetrate the cloth again. That'll do. So that's your contact points normally. Right, next one. Where's my list? Focus. If you've got depth enabled on your camera, make sure you're focusing on what you want to see in focus. So here's a top view. You've got your near and far focus limits there indicating your depth of field. So I'm trying to get my character more or less in the middle and adjust the f-stop just to bring in the focus a bit tighter on that character. Your next one's going to be lighting. So once you've applied your materials to your final objects, like I have here, you can see it's quite a dark cloth. So I'm using a HDRMI. I'm using a high definition image file anyway for the lighting model on this. Just going to rotate it a little bit. There you go, the sun behind her. Put it a bit straighter so you can't see directly into the sun. Now we're going to find that because of the brightness of the background you can't see a lot of the detail on the dress. So if we go into the tone mapping, you can change the f-stop a little. It'll wash out the background if that's a problem. If you do multiple renders at different exposures with different f-stops, you can perhaps merge them and get a combination of what you really want the background and the subject in. Your camera angle, just make sure you've got the correct camera selected. It will render the current camera. You can't lock it like in some packages in Daz, so just make sure you've got the right one. It's also affected by your resolution, so I've picked a golden ratio portrait here. Just make sure you've got your resolution picked. This is what it will render at. I'm going quite high resolution on this one. Obviously it takes a long time to set up these renders, so the more you get right before you hit the render button, the better. Now your look at target, there are scripts available to make your character look at the camera or look at an object, but you can do this manually. One of the advantages is if you set up the point at target for your left and right eyeball, she will track the camera. So if you move the camera slightly, you don't have to set these up again. Now, the simulate option, the simulate process after you've just checked this in iRay quickly, should go through quite smoothly because I've made sure my limbs don't intersect bodies. I've fast forwarded this a little bit because it is quite tedious, and this is more or less the final stage on this before I hit the render. So the cloth is draped, it's all bending correctly, and the hands should stop before they go through. And there you go, that's about 8 points to check before you hit the render button.